Since it's been a year that I moved here and started doing some experimenting at Eastbrook Farm, I thought it would be good to just review what I've done, some of what I've done so far. Obviously there's been lots and lots of different experiments, but here are some of the things that I've noticed looking at what was done last year. So this bed here was probably one of the ones that took the longest to set up. The plastic on either side of this bed is recycled silage wrap that's about 2.5 meters long, and then there's a mound of wood chip in the middle. And this bed was pretty successful at growing a range of vegetables, and the perennial ones that I can see that have survived are things like the little rhubarbs that are just starting to come up. And there's some larger ones down there that has somehow managed to have survived over winter. And so what I'm noticing here is that this method of having a really wide buffer zone on either side with the plastic is really helpful at stopping the grass encroach. On this bed, the only problem we had that was persistent was thistles coming up through the bed. But I think in principle this approach should work. Moving on to the next bed, I had plastic alongside here. We've had to take it up because the rolls of plastic that I was using have caused an enormous amount of damage. They've been damaged themselves, they fray, they get caught on plants, they damage the plants, they blow away. None of the pegs we've used have worked, and so I'm very, very against using that cheap, quick to put down, but ultimately hard to maintain and keep plastic. I just don't ever want to use it again. The wool that we used on this row here has been partially successful, but as you can see, the grass will just grow back through it. The plants that grew here were very happy, and so I would definitely want to use this material again, but ideally there would be some kind of membrane underneath stopping the grass being able to encroach, and possibly if I was setting this up again I would copy what's been done in red row, but having the recycled plastic on either side to act as a kind of a buffer zone. It may be that if I can't get hold of an organically acceptable membrane to go underneath the wool, that I could just do a really deep layer of wood chip with wool on top, because that's one thing I didn't try last year. I did wool with wood chip, but I didn't do wood chip with wool. So that's definitely worth trying out. It's just as a material, it's fantastic to grow into. The pumpkins were very happy, and things like nasturtium were easy to harvest the seeds from growing in this method. And then on this row here, I think this was a flipped turf row and with wood chip, and the path that was created relatively recently on the left has persisted, but as you can see in the main area the wood chip has just grown straight through, and again it's due to the lack of having some kind of membrane underneath to stop the grass being able to establish. Things like yellow chard did really well in this row. Lots of nasturtiums were in this row as well. I seem to remember some sunflowers and various things, so these rows all did pretty well. And then green row was also pretty successful, and this row was the one that I originally had plastic on. I took the plastic off too soon, planted into it, all the grass grew back, and so then we had to put some wool down and we planted into that. And this row was abundant with things like rocket, courgette, the sorrel has survived. You can see some of that there, and the rocket has obviously seeded itself because it's rocket, and there's loads more of that coming back this spring. So yeah, I might continue with this bed as well, and it feels like that's probably long enough to be talking.